how many formations have there been in the past few years that have actually depicted the Planet X?
Almost all of them. I would have to say, excluding, the perhaps it's up to maybe now 5 or 10% that are real frauds and well done frauds now. That at first the frauds were a couple of drunk guys with boards and pretty crude, but now they've gotten, but usually if it's very busy and it has a lot of squares and it looks like a man, symbol or something like that, that's a fraud. That's a hoax. The Zetas have also told us how to look for hoaxes. Real crop circles have the nodes bent, and the crop continues to grow. It's not broken, blah, blah, blah. So you can tell the difference if one would want to go into that. But probably about 90% of them are real, and of that, they're all talking about Planet X. They're not really talking. Some of them are depicting the way the universe is set out. Like I would have to say, maybe 20% are talking about how the planets are kept in their orbits and how that's what the Zetas call orbit lock. We don't have Venus drifting out into Earth's orbit or Jupiter drifting forward, and why that is. We are held because of all the many particle flows that go on, 9,999, of these out of 1,000 man is unaware of. We are dumb about how many particles there are subatomic. And so orbit lock is part of it. If there's circles going around a larger, or that's usually orbit lock. And the 3 is magnetic trimesters. And then you get these long timeline things, where a series of events happen. That's trying to tell the story over time, but it's pretty difficult. I mean, I look at that and it doesn't leap into my mind that I'm looking at, the story over time.
Well, recently there have been some crop circle formations that have depicted both animal and marine life. What is the connection there?
The Zetas were asked about that. They said this year in particular, fish, there were 3 fish, swimming outward, etc. They said that the circle makers were trying to be more obvious for people because the time is coming nigh, and that by using something absolutely recognizable like a fish or a bird or an insect, that people, at least you would not get some of these weird interpretations, because people go off into numerology and, and they just, it's the eclipse and blah, and they don't know, and so people are led astray, really, rather than looking at it and getting the feeling of what it's trying to relay. They're listening to somebody intellectualize, and they're wrong. All these various interpretations are wrong. So there's the circle makers are trying to be more obvious. If you have a fish in it, it's not really about the next eclipse or something. That was the Zeta's explanation for why things are being animals and insects and things people can recognize.
Okay, leading scientists are reporting that Western Antarctica is melting at an alarming rate, which, if it continues to melt at its present rate, will contribute significantly to global sea level rise. We're being told that global warming is affecting the ocean temperatures in the Antarctica, which is contributing to the ice melt. Now, Nancy, why does it appear that this meltdown is happening so quickly and so completely in such a short span of time?
Yeah, this has been going on since mid-1990s, and of course the pace is not at all what they defined in global warming. No one ever, but we recorded in the late 1990s, at least it was popping out a little bit in science literature, that the heating is coming from the bottom up. The permafrost is melting in Alaska, not because hot air is permeating from the top down, but it's coming from the bottom. And there was an article that came out, I think I have a copy somewhere, that said scientists have measured that rock, the heating of rock, is occurring greater down deep, several feet down in that rock than it is on the surface. This is not global warming. We have more volcanoes going off. Now, most volcanoes are not above ground. Most are undersea. You go into the Philippines and Indonesia, there's, I guess somebody said 3,000 undersea volcanoes worldwide, and these heat the water, and so the water is heating from that, and also So we have the roiling core, and this has been going on for over a decade because of the approach and arrival of Planet X, which causes all kinds of friction and jerking and pulling back and forth. And so this roils, and roiling creates friction. Friction releases heat particles. It comes up, heat rises, and that warms the water and warms the surface of the planet, causing glaciers to melt. You know, the rock under Antarctica is warming, and the water coming around it is warming too because of undersea volcanoes, and that's really what's causing this rapid melt.
Well, we covered this earlier in the show, but in June of this year, reports surfaced that there was an unusually high tidal surge running 2 feet above normal along the east coast from Florida to Maine, which of course perplexed the scientists since there were no storms during this report that could have contributed to this. Now, some thought the moon's orbit was playing havoc with the oceans, but this anomaly has been happening in other parts of the world as well, namely South Africa, Bangladesh, and Indonesia, to name a few. Now, what's behind these mysterious high tides and tidal surges?
The wobble of the Earth. You know, what's happening and what people have measured. I was doing this every 6 months. I think I'm a little overdue this time around to measure the wobble. I get people all around the world to note exactly where the sun is rising and setting, you know, and the time of day, and compare this and with an absolute east-south, north-south measure, not based on the compass, which is erratic, you know, and to tell me what the azimuth is. And then I took a look at the sky map as to where it should be, and I've always been able to track a figure eight that the North Pole is forming as the day progresses every day. Well, lately I think has changed, and I think it's more of a violent push. You know, for the North American continent, there's a push, you know, to the north and then a bounce back to the south. And some people have noted, you know, somebody in the Netherlands noted that the moon was radically, first it was in the northeast, and then a couple hours later it was in the southeast, and they were viewing the wobble in the night sky, or the push and bounce back that happened on the North American continent during the day. So, because that's how far, you know, to the forward around the world they are from us here in the North American continent. So this wobble pushes the land under the water. And because water is free to move as it wishes, some of it drags along with the planet, some of it, does not, and therefore you have this kind of sloshing. And the same is true of the blanket of air, which is the atmosphere. What is causing, you know, this erratic weather, where people say, you know, weird summer and winter, you know, too hot, too cold, it changed, sudden switch about. Tornadoes appearing where they never did before, that type of thing. It's because the atmosphere is being roiled also. Increased lightning storms is now appearing because you have air masses quickly traveling over each other, that didn't used to in the past. It's the wobble that is causing this unusual tides, something the Zetas predicted way back in the late 1990s, unusual tides, higher tide, unrelated to earthquakes or tsunamis. And this is yet another example of Zeta Talk accuracy.